Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Ark Republic Quick Cultural Conversation. Well, today we're going to be talking about Black masculinity in America and what it looks like and what it means to us. I am happy and very excited today because I have a few guests to join me on this topic. I have Clarity Saki. She is an entrepreneur, writer, just an amazing all-around person, and we trying to pull her into this media space, getting her on some podcasts as well because I think she's a great storyteller. And we got Ronell from 8-Bit Closed Fist. It's everything games, everything gaming. He's like, the go-to guy on TikTok when it comes to reviewing games, the go-to guy on TikTok when it comes to gameplay, and he always got a refreshing a refreshing point of view to share. And then we have my oldest friend. His name is Kuni. I great talent to do. One of the first choreographers ever for Wild Bunch. And he's put in work with us for years, and he's put in work in these streets. He's worked with a whole bunch of different community organizations. So I'm really excited to have him on too, to get his point of view. So let's get this thing started, y'all. We're going to jump right into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another quick cultural conversation. So, look, this is how we're going to start it. This is how we're going to kick it off. I'm going to start with you, Ronell, and then we'll go to Kuni after that, and then Clarity. What does Black masculinity mean to you when you hear it, Ronell?
It's tough. I think there's two things that come to mind, even when I hear that question. Again, it could be me thinking too hard, but the first one is what I think people think when they think of Black masculinity. And I think people think of my immediate thing is aggression, right? I think that a lot of people think of aggression.
Yes.
They think of over projection, maybe. I think they think maybe overconfidence. I think they think of the opposite of weakness, right? I think they think of making money. I think that's tied into it. Making money, being a provider, all that fun stuff. I think that's tied into it. And I think they think of. I think there's a few that maybe think community protector. I think there's a few that may come up a little bit. I think now a lot of people see that as almost anti-woman, almost. I think that's kind of is getting into that realm a little bit now. And yeah, I'll say for what I believe that it should mean like later on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Ro, what do you think? What do you feel when you hear that, Black masculinity?
In today's time, unfortunately, the first thing that comes to mind is the word toxic. Drooping, still gang banging, and you 50. Hyper aggression. Now, of course, I know different, but oftentimes, like that's kind of unfortunately one of the first flashes or pictures that come into my head when just generally hearing Black masculinity.
Okay. Clarity?
Well, I think coming from a different part of the country, the Midwest, via the South, and only having been out in LA for a little bit, my perspective on Black masculinity is a little different. Not nearly as negative as that. When I think Black, a Black man, I think strong, which is not necessarily tough, but strong. That provision piece does come in there, protector. You got to open some pickle jars, close close some doors and things as such. I definitely think of him not as being aggressive, but a force to be reckoned with, deserving of respect, something that you see. You can't just ignore it or walk past it. That's what I think about.
Okay. I like all those definitions, very varying. Um, you know,
I'll also add in. I think that other people think when they think hypermasculinity. I think also think hypersexual too.
Oh, I'll add that in. Yeah.
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 Everyone nodded in agreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes in there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like when it comes to, and like you said, Kuni, today, just the way it feels like things are handled today, when it comes to talking about black masculinity, I know for myself what I have experienced in regards to what you were saying about aggression, Ronell. I have experienced like me just because of my sheer stature, my sheer size. If I get angry, it's like almost I don't get to be angry like everybody else. I have to like, you know what I mean? Because like if I get angry, it's like I'm the big scary monster. But I'm like, no, I'm hurt.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, but when I'm hurt, I don't get to express that because ours is looked at as aggression. It's looked at as abusive, even if it's not that. You know what I mean? Like I don't get to yell at people.
It's threatening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
How
what
dare
I'm
you
saying?
say ouch when you just ran over my foot? How dare you?
Yeah, and I think because of that, we are always policing ourselves in regards to our behavior and policing ourselves in regards to even being able to express ourselves fully, to be able to express ourselves fully to everything we feel. Because it's like, well, if I do this, they're gonna think I'm tripping. If they call the police because I'm being loud, like that's a whole other thing I have to think about in regards to my reaction to any, even if I'm in the right, even if I have every right to react, you know what I'm saying? Even if I have every right to feel that way, it's like I have to police that. So that's something that I think about in regards to masculinity, and also a lack of vulnerability.
Hmm.
Like a lot of times you hear women say they want to see you be vulnerable, but then when you be vulnerable, they be like, man
Oh,
up.
he's sassy.
Sassy. Sassy apocalypse. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the list of everything that's not masculine. I know,
Oh.
Ronell, I know you be adding stuff too. You got to run a list of
You can't drink lemonade, can't order dessert, can't.
like we have literally seen women in videos like, ooh, if a man ordered dessert, I think that's sassy.
Yeah, actually.
If a man, if a man's this, if he smiled too much, he
Yep.
gay.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about, like I'm like, yo, this and the list of things that you cannot do as a
Yeah.
man
Yeah.
is wild. So
Yeah.
and I also think that lends to, how you said sometimes it's projection of like fake masculinity, because there's men thinking like, well, this is what I have to do, this is how I have to act to show a woman that I'm a man, I'm manly, because they view all these things as feminine or effeminate.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why, like, I think.
Oh,
What
go
was
ahead.
that?
I said I want to add one to that list. We don't like men who don't know their way around. Like if they're directionally challenged, make too many U-turns, it's
Yeah.
a wrap.
Lose the parking car. Oh man.
Like, left, you make right. Why is he using? Yeah. You like for him to know where he's going.
I think that yeah, so like I think what are we just asking for more clarifications for the question, right? Like what are we describing, right? We're saying what do we think of when we think of hypermasculinity, which could be a different thing, a different question from maybe what is black masculinity, which can be a different question from what have we experienced, you know what I'm saying, or attributed to black masculinity. You know what I mean? Like those
Okay,
can
so
all
let's go
be.
with the what is black masculinity. Let's go with that. What is it? Let's define it from your point of view.
That's where it gets tough for me. I'm gonna go last.
All right.
I'm not a man, but I think I have something to say about that. When you say what is black masculinity, my first question is to clarify, why do we have to separate what is black masculinity from masculinity, period?
Because I think
Why?
in America it gets treated different.
Okay. I think you're right. I think it is so hard for young boys growing up. You're teaching that boy to be a man, even when there's a father in the home and the situation is ideal. You're teaching him to be a man, but how do you tell him to keep his head up, chest out, but don't fly too high because you need to stay alive? There's not that whole, there's not restriction or any kind of chain on white boys coming up. Johnny, you can be anything you want. We tell our boys, you can be anything you want, but stay out of white folks' way. Kinda, not exactly that, but
Well, yeah, and that's why I
Pretty
say
much.
it's the difference.
yeah. And it's hard to walk tall while shrinking to survive. It's hard to speak loud while being quiet enough not to scare the white woman. How can you be bold? It's like a dual um, distance that you have to have as a black man. And I don't mean just the code switch piece. I mean a whole total dual existence that you have to have if you want to survive, if not to just thrive, but if you want to survive, stay alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are some rules that you have to adhere to, and those rules are actually counter to real masculinity, which is why I think our boys in particular, our men in particular, get caught up in the overcompensation, because all their lives to stay alive, they've had to be less than. And, when they're in control of their own lives, or so they feel like they are, they're like, okay, I'm going to overdo it now because I've really been suppressed so
Yeah.
long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Ro, in your experience, tell me what black masculinity means to you, and how do you how do I say this? Like, how do you utilize it in your everyday life, right? Like, how do you
For me, black masculinity is a direct mirror of my father. True indeed, my dad was a 6'7", 6'8", big guy. So shrinking was never taught. He was one who was, from some of the small things, if he was wrong about something, saying, hey, I apologize. Or, you know what? I didn't know that. Let me think about that. Okay. Which oftentimes, of course, we'll kind of get to that hyper masculinity a
the
little
ego,
bit.
yeah, the ego of I'm not wrong, the ego I'm not gonna apologize.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes, like now in my adult life, sometimes it could be sugar. A whole lot of times it's been shit. To be honest about it.
Yeah.
It is very welcomed in many spaces, professionally and personally, where it's like naturally honored and welcomed, and sometimes genuinely questioned, or being a person kind of really being inquisitive about certain aspects of how I move or how I think. But then oftentimes, especially in workplaces, it is not welcomed, right? It's just not welcomed, because I just don't simply know how to tiptoe. I just don't. If I was able to say, within rhyme and reason, of course, anything to my big statuesque guy, just because you're the CEO, no, there's only one way to say what I need to say, and I'm usually always pretty good at my words and my delivery, but once again, oftentimes it's just not welcomed.
Well, do you feel like that's one of those moments that she was kind of talking about, where we as black men sometimes you kind of got to shrink, like in the workplace? You know what I mean? Even just to like if I say things a certain way, you right, it'll come off as intimidating, right? Even if everybody else is having the same conversation, but if I say it,
well, I think, like for me, definitely, and it really is kind of dependent upon what day I'm in, where I'm at, which breath I'm in, about which way. But I'm kind of glad that I spent a lot of time on stage. Mm-hmm. So often, like on stage, and I'm mentally tough. So good thing I'm normally able to, I won't use the word I'm okay with, but I'm kind of on the workplace. I have many different masks. I know how to say the same thing 100 different ways. And usually I'm the one in the room who does not have a degree.
Right.
But I have a lot of pushback or insight. You know, hey, the data is there, or no, policy says blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, like, yeah, like I'm a product of public education, stupid. Like, we did learn how to read for our own self, you know. We did. So oftentimes I'm easily, how can I say this? I'm easily entertained.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. How do you deal with people who try to question your masculinity?
Well, that's always kind of been the greater majority of my life, bro, right?
I know, yeah.
Because I was just always different. I kind of coined the phrase, we grew up in the hood, but not of the hood, okay? Our dad, because of what he did professionally, and our dad was a different type of guy. And I definitely picked up a lot of that, you know, whether, you know, people, and, you know, hey, all I knew, I was semi-smart. I just like going to school. Hell, my voice didn't change until I was probably like 19. You call the house with still a house phone. I'll answer phone. Hello, Joyce. Joyce is my mama. You know, but even back then, even still now, like, I've always been very good by me. Like, I always loved how, like, my morals, my where I stood, period. Despite whatever a person would try to say, question, or this, because, you know, not like that, but I would look at them like, you don't have no daddy. I would. You know, I would look at them, well, you still wearing that same outfit. Oh, but you're the one who's asking me to buy you some annihilators, though, right? Oh,
that's
okay.
hilarious.
Like, I've always kind of had that, Dame, you know, kind of that, even whether I didn't see it or not. But oftentimes, maybe because I was so used to being judged and scrutinized from children and adults, it toughened my skin from a very, very young age to where I had to be real secure in myself. Well, otherwise, I was just gonna be a punk. I was gonna be punked all the time. I was just gonna be, they talking about me. I want to. I can't use that word. What's the new word? Unalive. You know. So for me, those early years of scrutiny really, it prepared me for the world.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it did.
So what would we say is, okay, so clearly, right, we all know that, like, if black man gets slightly mad, then he is the Hulk, right? He is extreme, you know, the worst thing to ever cause. How do we contribute that to black masculinity, or just black? I say that because women got to deal with that too, right? For black woman, you get a little, you know what I'm saying, a little irritated.
The angry
she
black
got
woman.
the attitude. She the angry black woman. You know what I'm saying? She Hulk. You know what I'm saying? So,
but that's
what
true.
you said? What
she said? But that's true.
So, like, what are some things that we think is directly tied and only tied to? I think it might be easier to start with masculinity, but to specifically to black masculinity.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I read a book by it was Abraham Kendi, and he was talking about how basically it's like the King Kong syndrome, right? Like, in media, it was made for us to
Hold
look
on,
like.
Rose. Give me the long story short of the King Kong syndrome.
So the King Kong syndrome basically is, in media, they made us look like we were the big gorilla monsters. You know, like, say, for example, just a quick example. If a black man committed a crime, in, was it the 1920s, I want to say, or something like that, or even before. But like, if a black man committed crime, when print newspaper was out, was the beginning of the print newspaper. If a black man committed a crime, it was attributed to all black men. See, this is what black men do. This is how they get your women. Da da da. Like, that's how it was written. If a white man did it, it was very individualized. He did this. He is a bad man. And because of that, that has been perpetuated through media throughout, because basically that's how media started. It's in the DNA of American media. So you remember probably in the late 80s, early 90s, we remember the fit the description era. You know what I mean? Where you could plug and play any black man who was walking down the street into fitting the description. And so that's all a part of like the King Kong syndrome. Like, they make us by media look like the big bad monster, when if a white man does the exact same crime, he is singled out. And we are representative of every black person if we do something bad. And the opposite, if we do something positive, we're one of the good ones. So we're singled out in that way. We're singled out when we do good. Oh, you did good. Not all black people did good. You did good. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. So
we see with the school shooters now too, right? They mental ill. They specifically acted as an individual while, you know what I'm saying? But black person get caught in a video not even stealing, and it's every single black person in the world be stealing.
And like we were saying about the school shootings, and it's an epidemic. They're mentally ill. Single black moms been out here doing it for themselves for the longest, tired, overwhelmed, barely getting by. COVID happened, and white mamas had to parent their children. It became an epidemic. It's all over the news. If you need parenting, so forth, something that black women have done forever. I think the blackness is the thing that is toxic. Black masculinity is associated with toxic. Black anything is toxic. Black
in
mold,
America.
everything. And how, just us, our history, how we got here. Strong, we were laborers. We weren't thought of as intelligent. We're chopping cotton, building houses, chopping down oak trees and things as such. And you saw that in your grandfather, and that's what you saw as a man, because that's what he did, and he passed it on. And the other little nuances, business savvy, intelligence, emotional maturity, those weren't things that were passed along because they weren't valued. They weren't things that where a white man can leverage those same set of skills and see some benefit from it, some return on his. And so I think we think of black men, like you say, the way we've seen them, strong and tough, because they're literally, the earliest pictures. If you look at any picture of your great grandfather or grandfather, he probably had on some work boots, or, he's strong. And white families during that same era, you got the mama sitting down with her legs crossed, and they're poor white trash, basically. And he's standing above her, not necessarily looking strong, but looking smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and when a black person commits a crime, like you were saying, like, remember OJ was white until he committed that crime, right?
Y'all got him back. He said himself, "I'm not black, I'm OJ."
Yeah. Okay.
Until he killed Nicole. That Time magazine, he was like, my complexion, Goonies complexion. They darkened him. How much darkness is associated with bad, right off.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I, and that goes to like what we spoke about in regards to like the podcast world, right? Because I know, let me give you an example. I don't know if you guys saw, Anthony Mackie did an interview with The Pivot. And he was talking about how he's raising his kids a certain way, so he ain't never bought his kids a pair of Jordans. And you would have thought this dude said, "I don't feed my kids dinner."
Yeah.
The way people responded.
Yeah.
Like he was depriving his children. And what I did see was a lot of black women were attacking, like, he don't have to do that, he rich. I said, oh, this is an interesting like social experiment, because a black man literally just said, I'm trying to raise my kids to have value, so I'm not just getting them Jordans. And everybody was like acting like he was the worst dad in the world.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the craziest thing, but I also felt like that was kind of a snapshot of society a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because of course we not speaking in generalizations. We know
But
it's not
these are the same women or same type of women who will buy their child all the brand new Jordans, right? And who gotta fail and bam. This is it. So now you see what happens. We reward bad behavior. We are rewarding piss poor behavior. Oh no, it's fine.
Yeah. No, that's a great point and a great call out. And I'm glad you said that, because in regards to even like I saw that when I was teaching, and I'm Ronell, I'm sure you probably can attest to this. I saw a kid, he had Jordans, name brand, everything. Like, even though they wore school uniforms, his uniform looked a little better than everybody else's, because everything he bought was like the name brand version, right?
Yeah.
He had Jordans, he had the Beats, because that's another accessory. They got the Beats headphones on. I'm like, them $250, especially when they first dropped. So he had the Jordans, the Beats, an iPad, and an iPhone. Ain't seen a class. Ain't seen a class. You know what I mean? And I was like, and that was like the norm. I saw that so much, like kids failing everything, but their parents getting them everything.
Yeah.
And to me, I think some of that goes to the lack of that masculine energy around some of these kids too in the house. Honestly, I think some of that is missing. And and I hate when we had this conversation and people blame single mothers for it. I'm like, well, the dad has to take some blame. He's not here.
How's she a single mama?
Yeah.
How do we get here? Let's do the full.
How do we get here? Like, because a lot of times we had this conversation, it always falls on kind of raising these single women or raising these boys.
Yeah.
I'm like,
why are the single women raising these boys?
Mamas, their daughters, and they love their sons. And I think it's so true. My children, I was married for 30 years, so they came up with their daddy in their house. But even I fell into that. A little tougher on my daughter. Raised a daughter, love the son. Fortunately, we had the balance there. So my husband would be like, I'm going to need you to chill. And everyone crying, I just think you got him doing too much. But, I think we love our boys. And I don't know if we project something on them, but the girls, maybe because we understand their psyche, we know how much they can take, so we put it on them. But our boys are like, oh no, something could happen to them. We're already fearful for them in the world, and we want to provide a safe space for them at home. And that's not good. I mean, safe enough, that.
Right. Well, I like what you said though, how you said though, that balance though, right? Like if like I'm probably not as hard on my son I need to be. That's what dad is supposed to be there for. And, I knew Kuni's dad really well. And when I talk about a towering presence of a man, and he was one of the first, I guess what they call it now, but to me, he was one of the first Afrocentric men that I had ever met who was connected to like the motherland and talked about those things and explained why he named his son Kuni and why he changed his last name to I and his brother's Bahia, so I think I got to watch from afar, but I used to be with him all the time as well, vice versa. Kuni's with my dad all the time, so I got to by proxy also see what it was like to grow up in a household that just saw everything different, not from that Christianity lens, right? Not strictly from that Christianity lens, and from more of an African tribal lens, and the things that he taught me are invaluable. I will never forget that. And I do think of his dad. I think of my dad as like a picture of masculinity, like worked hard, brought the bread home, made sure the wife had everything she had. And what's even crazier? Even though my dad, because, people always thought my mom ran everything. They're like, oh, your mama run your daddy. I'm like, no, the fuck she don't. Like, y'all think that because my mom is, personality wise, she was a lot more boisterous. She, and you would probably from the outside looking in, you would think that. But if my pop said something wasn't happening, It wasn't happening.
Right.
The buck stops with Pops. Like, as much as y'all think Mama run this, if my Pops is like, no, your daddy said no, and that's literally the end of it. The thing is, Pop didn't say no a lot because Pop wasn't tripping like that, so he didn't use that to, like, you know what I'm saying, to put the hammer down on it. So a lot of times he left that to my mom's discretion, but there's certain things he was just like, no, my boys ain't doing that.
Yeah.
My boys can't go over there. My boy, you know what I mean?
One thing that I will say I would think is I don't even know what to call. I don't know if I would call it black masculinity, maybe, but probably not. I think young black boys have to, or are pressured to subscribing to masculinity at a younger age. One thing that you brought up, the Anthony Mackie thing. I mean, not buying your kids Jordans is preferred. I prefer if you don't spoil your kid, you know what I'm saying, because you're a millionaire. That's just how you get brats. But he did say some shit, like he said, like he had to talk to his kid about like being a man.
Taking up
like being a man in the house, or like somebody try to come in the house, or it was something that I do remember thinking like, all right. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody come in this house, bro, your little boys, I'm sorry. You ain't stopping no burglar. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even need to, like, put that part on him. And I think that maybe making young boys subscribe to, like, whatever someone's idea of masculinity is at a younger age might be something that is a little bit more exclusive to black people, like, kind of, period. Like, you know, like,
I think so. I think I get what you're saying, and I agree in that, because there's conversations that our parents have to have with us that other races don't have to have with their kids, right? And because of that, I think we are kind of pushed into growing up early. You know what I mean? Like, we are kind of
losing our innocence a lot earlier, losing our, you know, that naiveness of the world. Other communities, oh no, the police are your friend.
Right.
You know, with us, just shut up and just make it home. Just shut up so you can just make it back home.
Yeah.
That's the shrinking. You notice how white daddies talk to their little boys. Hey, buddy, how you doing, pal? Hey, friend.
Yeah.
What's up, little man? Hey, man.
Right.
You know, come here, big boy, right off rip, because we recognize that nobody else is going to see you as little buddy, little pal, little friend, you know, long enough for you to even get used to that. You can have little buddy, little pal, little friend until you're about 3. But
and that's sad. That's sad. Like, when you really think about it, that's sad. Like, you talking about like 3, 4 years old, we start getting it. You better shake it off.
Man. You know how many mans is up there? You know, like that.
And
even that's that. Like I'm saying, the fact that we have to have those thoughts, the fact that we have to have those conversations, and even like how, you know, a young dark-skinned boy in the hood even has different challenges than a brown-skinned boy my color.
Yeah.
In the hood. You know what I mean? Like even that, and things we got to deal with. And I think those are the things that kind of lead, like when we talk about the actual toxic masculinity, right? It's behind a whole bunch of hurt.
Yeah.
Because we have been led to be treated a certain way or treat people a certain way because of their color. You know what I mean? And because of that, they get this like complex against the world. Like, it's like a whole cycle that starts when we are kids. We are little boys. Because I will tell you, I do remember like the little light-skinned dudes, the super light-skinned dudes got treated a certain way in elementary school, and the little dark-skinned boys. And I'm talking about from everybody, from the teachers, staff,
for sure,
to the kids, to the girls. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a different thing.
Yeah.
Because I was in between the middle, so I didn't get treated like the yellow dudes, and I didn't get treated like the real dark skinned dudes. But so I'm in the middle. I got to see all of it. I'm like, oh, this is, when you get older and you think back, you're like, oh, this is really crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that breeds a lot of, when you talk about the actual toxic masculinity, right? That actual anger, that actual like those kind of behaviors. I think that some of that starts from way back then at that young age, and dealing with those things and just feeling like the world sees you differently than they see a lot of people. Go ahead, Rossi. You want to say something?
Yeah, but at the same time, let's not forget, sometimes it's just, how can I say this? Giving in to how the world views you. You know, that dark-skinned boy, that little nappy-haired girl, you know, and, always told that you're stupid, or always, while everybody else is picking on you, but the teacher will be the one saying no is you. So after a while, I think there is a psychological term for it, but after a while, we will accept and become what has been placed on us. Because after a while, people just get tired of that pushing back. Nobody's listening to me. It doesn't matter anyway. I'm still gonna get in trouble, so I might as well just be what everyone else says that I am.
1,000%. That definitely happens. It's like when you when you late to work, it's like, shit, if I'm 5 minutes late and I'm gonna get written up, I'm gonna be an hour late. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the exact mindset.
Like, you gonna say I did it, I might as well do it.
Have some fun. I'm getting in trouble no matter what.
Yeah.
That is quite literally what happens, right? And obviously we could take that into the broader conversation here, right? If Black masculinity have certain negative connotations and negative impacts, if they keep saying Black men are supposed to be hypersexual and aggressive, then like they're gonna start start grasping that, start rocking with that. And that's
that started that whole thing. Black man is so super sexual. Remember that historic movie, Birth of a Nation?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ingrained. I mean, it's just.
It's literally in the DNA of this country to view us that way, right? Even from, the slave masters making, Black men have sex with their wives, like have children with the white wives, those mixed babies, what I mean? Like, all of that is a part of it. And, or even the old school, like, white woman messing with a Black man story, and then she get caught, he raped me. That goes into that view of us as monsters and like you said, hypersexual, even though, like, no, this was a consensual relationship until she got caught.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like, all of these things, I think, are the things that are on the fringes of what people call, toxic Black masculinity or misogynoir and all those things that they kind of place on us. And the crazy thing is, they place these things on us and they don't talk to us.
Right.
They don't have conversations with us about it.
Yeah.
They just say, "Oh, Black men are this because of this." And I said, that's crazy that I see a lot of these conversations in these spaces. We are not involved in these conversations about us and how we
Black
feel,
men don't like Black women.
Yeah, Black men don't like Black women, and all. And it's crazy because, one, the data doesn't bear out to show that, right?
Yeah.
Like, people take sample sizes where they like look at the NFL and the NBA. I'm like, that's literally not all Black men. Like, 80. I think the number still holds. 80% of Black men are still married to Black women.
Yeah.
Which is super high.
Right. Right. So what are some of the things that y'all would say Black masculinity attributed positively?
To me, positively, and this is something that I feel like we've been fighting against for a long time, even in our own culture, because people make jokes about it all the time, is like the daddy not around thing. Sorry.
Hey.
The daddy not around thing. But when you look, Black men, even if they're not in the homes of their children, right, even if they're not living, they are the most involved parents in regards to actually raising their kids. And there's data to prove it. Like, we actually do homework with our sons. We actually take our daughters to ballet class. We actually take our daughters to karate class and dance class.
Actually, do your daughter's hair. Actually, might be a little rough for the first, but will do. Yeah.
We are.
Did my hair.
Yeah. So by data, we are actually more involved. But according to the way people view us, Black daddies ain't around. Black daddies ain't in the house. So they use that black daddies in the house to say we not around. Like just because we not in the house don't mean we not
Don't
raising
raise our
our kids.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
we
you know,
know
like
early on with the welfare system how that was set up. The black man could not be in the house and
yep.
allow, thrive. He's making money and he's helping his family and supporting his family too. But if he's there, she's not going to get that help, and you need both.
Look, I remember in the 80s, friends of mine who like literally had to make it like their daddy didn't live there because a visit was coming from the social worker. You know what I mean? And you think about how traumatizing not only that is to the child, but how hurtful it had to be for the dad to like, oh, I have to go stay at my cousin's house for a week or something. I have to remove everything that shows that I live here just so my family will be able to continue to eat. You know what I mean? Like, and you think about the psychological damage that can do over the years to people. You go ahead, Clarity.
How you said that black men don't like black women, and that's a lie. I'm starting to hear that black women don't like black men. Have y'all heard that? And
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think that's all about?
I think it's the same thing. Honestly, I think it's an effort to try to keep us separated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, it's an effort to keep us fighting each other and not coming together for the greater good to figure out the things we need to figure out for our community. Because I think about them like it's crazy how fast those clips get shared, like the negative clips in regards to like black men versus black women, and I'm like, but the positive does not get shared nowhere, not nearly at the same rate. It's not hitting your algorithm at the same rate. And I think that's a conscious effort to keep black men and black women bickering at each other and not realizing that we know we need each other.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty successful because like the generation lower than me, I wish there were like someone even younger than me. They're even worse. They're worse. The gap, the war raging between the black men and black women for the younger generation is
It's
even
crazy.
worse.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because it's gotten kind of ingrained into just internet culture too, right? So now it's not even their teachings in the house necessarily. It's like what they see all day on the internet, and it's just a constant bickering back and forth that create a nasty wedge. You know what I'm saying? Like just a nasty wedge. So this is why, and I'm going to throw a pretty big wrench. All right.
Okay.
All right. It's a pretty big wrench.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Brace yourselves. All right. I attribute, and I feel like this is not that big of a wrench, right? Like I think masculinity, right? Period, right? Especially black masculinity, but masculinity, period, femininity, period. I think that is something that is left behind in the steps of, right? So we step forward, right? And then they say, oh, okay, those steps they took, okay, that was masculinity, right? That's kind of what they did there. That was masculinity, right? What I think we're doing right now is we're trying to walk into masculinity. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like how there's Christians who like follow and believe that the Bible is supposed to lead them and not that the Bible is telling you stories about Christ who you're supposed to follow. You know what I mean? Like I think that's what's kind of happening with masculinity, where like this is a thing that we are trying to like go to instead of us doing our thing and then be like, oh, okay, that thing is masculinity. And I think that's a big change because nobody was talking about masculinity and femininity, you know what I'm saying? Like 10, even 5 years ago, you know what I mean? Like this is a new thing that's going on. And I think that was because it was an afterthought. It was just like, oh, my dad does this, that, and the third. That's a man. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what happens. Instead of, I should be doing this, that, and the third to be a man.
Well, I'm glad you said that because you know what I think I attribute that to as well? I think it was when the conversation started about there should be no gender roles. I think that's what is the crux of this whole masculinity, femininity conversation is because, like, there's no gender roles. So since there's no gender roles, then it's like, well, I'm a man, I don't have to change tires now no more, because the women said they want to be equal, or a woman is like, I don't have to cook, and you know what I'm saying. So it's like all these things, like how you said, we just followed in the footsteps. Like, oh, my dad showed me how to change a tire, so now I know how to change a tire. My dad showed me how to tie a tie, I know how to tie a tie. My dad told me how to protect my mom if he's not here. You know what I mean? These are things that we just we're taught. But then when you start getting people who were saying, well, there's no gender roles, you shouldn't. And I know women who were literally teaching their sons, you shouldn't have to open the door for a woman. You should, if she ain't doing this for you, you shouldn't do that for her. Like I've seen it.
Yeah, damn.
I've seen it. You know what I mean? So I think some of that is the things that they call old fashioned, missing and getting rid of some of the things they feel like are old fashioned. I think that's what's kind of started this conversation, and some of the confusion, confusion about what's masculine and what's feminine.
Yeah.
You know, because like how you say those crazy lists with the girl saying this is feminine. I think that's because they don't know.
Yeah.
They ain't been around real men.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
I would definitely say that. Yeah, like I think, and that's what it feels like. It feels like we're at a point where we're scrambling to like, all right, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's
also just I'm gonna say it, and you know, I hate to be this guy, but there are a lot of very bitchy young men.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like arguing with your girl.
Right.
What
About
you bring to the table? What?
Right.
That's your woman. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the prize. You not the prize.
Yeah.
Like, when have you ever heard niggas talking like that?
Yeah.
Before now about, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, y'all sound like two women arguing.
Yeah.
It don't sound like even a man and a woman fighting.
But that's the thing, though. That's pushback from the list, right? That's them saying, well, fuck it. No matter what the fuck we do, you know what I'm saying? We gonna be we can't do that. You know what I'm saying? You got literal conflicting things on here. Like I'm saying, like we can't be the things on this list. So I'm just do why? And they start going back and they're questioning all the things that they were not allowed. Like some of the toxic parts of the masculinity. They're like, okay, I wasn't allowed to say my feelings. Fuck that. You know what I'm saying? Like now I'm all in them. I'm all in my feelings. Right. So it's a lot of like, right. And then for some of the women, I see that they were kind of, I mean, everybody was at a point where we were kind of like, for the most part, kind of removing some of the gender roles, right? Right, we're kind of unraveling some of the shit that didn't make sense, right? But now, again, the men are saying, well, shit, we can't do shit, fuck it. But then the women are also saying, like, honestly, this capitalism shit kind of hard, man. Maybe we could... Maybe you can hold the door for a nigga once or twice, you know, pay a bill or two, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard out here, right? So I feel like everyone is kind of scrambling right now as a response to like some of the other stuff that was going on.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because you know, it's funny. I was just like, a friend of mine even said it for himself. A friend of mine, he like, look, I was raised by all women, didn't have my dad around, and I only saw women arguing. You know, he said, so when I got grown, he said, I was like arguing with my girl. He said, I stopped myself in the middle arguing. He said, man, we sound like two bitches.
Wait a minute.
Like self-realizing is a beautiful thing, though.
Yeah.
And I think that if for nothing else, that was the adult thing to do. I just won't even necessarily say masculine.
Yeah.
But that is very adult thing to do, to be able to check yourself like that.
Yeah.
Look back, be able to call a thing a thing.
Yeah.
Then run that in your new equation.
Exactly.
And recognize, damn, am I really being bitch made? Damn.
Look, and that's what he said. He said, I realized at that moment. Yeah, he said, I realized at that moment, like, I need to talk to some more men. I need to have some more strong men in my life. He said, because like literally, like we arguing. He said, and I'm hearing us in my head while we're arguing. And he said he stopped the whole argument, like, hold on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you think that men are quiet in an argument or less bickering back and forth because they feel like my father he didn't go back and forth, but I think it came from a sense of strength. Like, if I want it my way, it's going to be my way. And like whatever he said it. So we don't have to keep going back and forth. You can keep going back and forth, but it does not change the equation.
I
Like
think
Kuni
that's
said,
some of it. I think that's some of it. And I also think that's because back then there were like clear gender
Yeah.
roles.
yeah,
Right.
they don't know if they're
Yeah.
gonna win or not, so they
Yeah.
fight for dear
And
life.
also,
But
I think women used to go to jail for talking too crazy. Like it was not.
Yeah.
Back in the
Yeah.
day, they'll end up in an insane asylum or something like
Yeah,
that.
you might. She
Yeah.
might not be wanting to go back and forth. So yeah, no, for sure. I think there's a lot to that specifically, but yeah, I think that's my opinion is that I think that is more reasons to stop thinking about it, right? I think that's more reason to stop trying to figure out what the masculine shit is, stop trying to figure out what the feminine shit is, stop worried about what energy is what, and just like focused on how can you be a good person, right? How can you live in this society and create a life that is nice for you and your whoever the hell, right? Because I think we've gotten to the point of like this weird scrambling thing where it's like, again, what is masculinity? What is femininity? What is good masculinity? What is bad femininity? Like, what is, and it's really just fucking us up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really like a roadblock that I think we need to just jump on past.
Well,
You know what I'm
I
saying?
think,
Like,
and I also think it's some of it's because things have evolved in a way that we haven't caught up with yet, right? And I think that's another reason that we're having this conversation because when you think, we all got we all got a stud homegirl. You know what I mean? Like we got a stud homegirl. You might have a feminine gay homeboy. Like you know what I mean? Like there's all these things that are different now.
yeah.
Because back in the gender affirming role
Tomboy days. When they
the
call them
tomboy,
tomboy,
yeah, it
you
was
just
male
grow out of it.
female.
Yeah, like,
She just a tomboy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So because everything is like different in that regard too, I think that's another reason we having these conversations is because you have like the women who are male presenting or who just have a more masculine energy, as they say, or you
Yep.
have a like I saw a post on was it Shade Room last night, I think, where a girl was like dating a guy who was super feminine, but she was like, he give me what I need.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? She like
With the red
yeah,
braid.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did y'all see, just super random, did y'all see the one girl that was like, I had to leave my date because my dude wrote the mechanical bull 3 times?
Okay, I can't be mad at her.
Like, all right.
I feel
just
like I can't be.
obnoxious.
Yeah, that's hey. If you don't get your ass off that bull, boy, I
That's just
don't know.
obnoxious.
I don't know if I would have. I'm not mad at her for that.
Yeah.
because I got 3 guys here. Is it true that somebody can make you feel like more of a man or less of a man? More masculine, less masculine, or is your masculinity defined by you, period? Or can you be made to feel less
It
masculine?
is defined by you. However, there are some people who, how they hold it in their hands, how they, like everybody don't quite hug you the same, right? There's some people when they hug you, that you've been hugged, like you feel it. That same kind of thing with masculinity, and I would probably assume the same thing would be true for femininity, or being, or just being a woman, just how they cradle you, how they look at you, how they support that. Definitely. Yeah, like I mean,
like it is defined by you, but it can be certified by someone else. It can be, it can kind of be like, yeah, she makes me feel more manly. You know what I mean? Like
some people water, some people plant and some people water and acknowledge certain things in a way, whatever your love language is, which way, how you communicate. Some people just do it a whole lot better than others.
Sure.
And according to what some people say, maybe, no, wait a minute. Maybe that's why some white women, black men are with white women, because that's how.
That's what they say. That is what they say.
Yeah. They make them feel more masculine. So you're saying that masculinity is external to a certain extent?
Well, for some, definitely.
Yeah, for
Okay.
some, for sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
I would say for me, it's a absolutely no. There's no possible way anyone ever will make me wake up tomorrow and say, I don't know how much of a man I am. Right. But I think that's because, again, like what you guys are saying, like I don't attribute one specific feeling or characteristic with masculinity. Right. So, like, if I was a person to classify my ability to solve problems, right, as masculine, right, which a lot of people do, right? Your girl, how do you fix this? Blah 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 blah, right? Can you do this, right? If I was the person to attribute that to masculinity, then not being able to do that would make me feel less masculine, right? Like that would be that. If she's fixing all the shit, right? If I married a fucking carpenter and she knew how to, you know what I mean? Like do the thing, right? Then like
I had
now
about 5 jokes with that. Are you really in that kind of no? That's another kind of relationship,
right? You know what I'm saying? But that would make me feel less of it, right? But I don't attribute anything other than me being a man as masculine. Now that doesn't mean that, like, again, I don't want to be like praised every now and then, right? Not in the biblical sense, but like, you know what I'm saying, verbal praise. Like that doesn't mean that like I don't want some, hey, you look handsome or some shit like that. But I just don't attribute that with masculinity. You know what I'm saying? I don't really know shit about cars. Sue me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got me. I'll order you an Uber or some AAA, you know what I'm saying? But I can't flick your tire for real. I could look up YouTube, but that has nothing to do with my feeling of masculinity. But I also understand that, you know, somebody else may see that and think, oh shit, I don't really want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think, slight wrench, you know what I'm saying? Not to go too crazy into this end, but I also think if this is recorded, I'm good. All right. So I think if we removed some of that barriers that, let's just say again, if you don't know shit about cars, like if I was born earlier in the time, right, where it was like men cars, that's 1 in 1, right? If I don't feel that, I can imagine I live in a whole society, right, where like men fix cars. That is kind of a neutral base for society. If I'm living in that society, my mom, my dad, everyone around me is telling me, if you don't fix cars, you know what I'm saying, you got to fix cars, you're a man. And I just don't want to do it and I can't do it. I can imagine myself thinking, oh shit, maybe I'm not that much of a man, right?
I think it's just like the ACTs are culturally biased. The
Right.
ascribed masculinity traits are culturally biased because the things that we ascribe to being masculine are more readily available to white men.
100%.
Fathers in the home and so forth. And so it's just like the ACT. If you ask a black kid, well, you know, the best test or whatever, you know, about kickball, he knows all the rules. But if you ask him something about golf, he hasn't been exposed. Doesn't make him less smart.
Yeah.
So in the case of a black man, if you ask a black man about fixing a car and he can't fix the car, it doesn't make him less masculine. He is a product of the environment that he grew up in. And a lot of times men have grown up, especially out here in California, and lived their entire lives in apartments. And so cutting some grass, starting a lawnmower is beyond them. You know, what the hell?
Right.
I was like, you ain't got no lawnmower? Oh, you know, kind of deal. But I started to get it. It's some of the things are just culturally biased against black men as it pertains to masculinity. Black men don't have access to, and black women are holding them to that same standard that hold white men to.
This is 100% exactly right. And if we look at some of the things that we talked about, a lot of it goes back to like white supremacy, basically, right? Like the hypersexualized black men. That was really white supremacy that kind of implanted that whole thing. Not being in homes, right? Now masculinity is like someone who can be in the home, right? That's was some white supremacy shit.
There we now we get into it.
Right, being a provider, right? White
Now we
men
get
was
into
able to be a sole provider for an entire family at one point. We literally couldn't. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, right?
Literally.
And if you tried to, you had to leave so that she could survive. And if you
Right.
got attached to your slave wife, you got sold off. So it's in your DNA to
Yeah. So a lot of these things are definitely tied to that, and we're still trying to like fight and get to that. And this even goes into a little bit of like, again, like I was saying, if I was in a society where I had to fix cars to be considered a man and I didn't fix cars, I can imagine myself thinking to myself, okay, maybe I'm not a man, right? And I think that also leads into a little bit of the transgender conversations, right? Transgender conversations, right? If a woman feels like I really like basketball, you know what I'm saying? Like y'all calling me y'all say if I like women, I mean if I like basketball, then I'm a nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like is that what that means?
Okay, because I like basketball, right?
You know what I mean? That's how that gets in.
Oh, hold on, we lost him. My boy Yucatan was about to come in, but he disappeared. But
Fellas,
hey,
Wait, I see him.
I know you have to jump off, Clarity. So thank you for your input. Thank you, because I really wanted a woman's input on this. And we're gonna bring Yucatan in. We're gonna continue the conversation. But thank you for joining us. I hope we can get you back on again for another quick cultural conversation with us.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.
Mine.
Peace.